Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really diving into that friction point,
Mm.
between complete surrender and, well, ferocious determination.
Yeah, it's a fascinating tension.
We're looking at two incredibly powerful documents today. They seem almost contradictory at first glance, but they actually complement each other in exploring human transformation.
Hmm.
Think of this as our deep dive into how people reclaim their destinies. Specifically, we're tracing that path from, well, absolute powerlessness, often seen in addiction, towards finding real internal strength.
And it's a journey many can relate to, but we are grounding it, like you said, in a really acute context.
Yeah.
The reality of severe addiction. This isn't just abstract self-help.
No.
We're talking about the brutal, psychological, sometimes physical pivot someone has to make when they're facing, the abyss.
And our sources frame this perfectly. One called Powerless in the First Act of Strength. It really details that agonizing moment of defeat.
Yeah, the hitting bottom.
Exactly. And the other, Greatness Within You, gives this incredibly intense blueprint for the fight that has to come after that moment, the lifelong effort.
So that's the core paradox we want to unpack for you, the listener.
Mm.
How does giving up, truly surrendering control, admitting total defeat,
Mm.
how does that paradoxically unlock the fierce determination needed to grab hold of your purpose?
It's about charting that critical shift, isn't it? From being lost, completely lost, to making that first real move towards reclaiming yourself.
Yeah, moving from a life that's basically an escape to a life that's a fight,
Mhm.
purposeful fight.
You really can't start building until you stop fighting the demolition that needs to happen first. That
Right.
feels right.
Yeah, so our goal today is to connect the vulnerability, that raw exposure of the initial surrender, to the almost military-grade intensity required to achieve and sustain what the second source calls greatness.
And we'll see how the energy, all that energy previously just consumed by the addiction cycle, it has to be redirected, repurposed into building a meaningful life. Okay, so let's start there, at rock bottom. Guided by that first source, Powerless, and the first act of strength, it begins by identifying this initial shift, this moment it calls the hesitation.
Mhm.
It's when all the frantic energy of the addiction just stops. The noise dies down and you're just left alone with the wreckage.
And this isn't just a quick pause, it's not like taking a breather. It's a forced stop. The distractions are gone.
Yeah.
And the source, it captures this silence so vividly. It says, when the bottles are empty, the powder is gone. And the silence feels heavier than the high ever did.
Wow. That weight.
That weight is the consequence, right? The
Yeah.
crushing reality of a life you've put on hold, hitting you all at once. And for the first time, there's nothing there, no substance to buffer that internal noise
Bah.
or the external judgment.
And the importance of this hesitation is that it shatters the illusion that you were managing it, that
Yeah.
you had it under control. This is where that creeping thought comes in. The one that says, okay, this isn't just a bad patch, not something I can just fix tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. It's deeper.
Yeah, it's something deeper, something that's been eating away at me long before I ever admitted it. It's that shift, isn't it? From acknowledging a bad habit to finally admitting this is my state of being now.
And that transition, that's the core realization of powerlessness.
Yeah.
The text really gets into that feeling, being powerless to face life, powerless to stop running from it.
That's stark.
It forces a complete reevaluation of your relationship with the substance. For years, maybe decades, the person believed the addiction was a tool,
Mm-hmm.
a way to control anxiety, social situations, painful memories.
They genuinely thought, if I take away this crutch, I'll just collapse. They felt they needed the booze, the drug, whatever it was, because without it, they felt they had no control.
Right. The substance gave them this, perverse kind of agency, the power to just flip a switch on their own feelings.
But what's so devastating, and what the source points out so bravely, is the uglier truth hiding beneath that.
Yeah.
That they never had control at all. The addiction wasn't the tool, it was the master, all along.
Right. So admitting powerlessness means finally recognizing that the substance itself was calling the shots,
Yeah.
dictating their schedule, their relationships, their finances, everything.
The whole foundation just collapses. Because the life they built was based on this lie of self-management.
Mm-hmm. And as this internal collapse is happening, as the person starts to maybe accept the reality of their addiction, they suddenly realize something else.
What's that?
The world already figured it out. The world already knows.
Yes. The source calls this the external weight of exposure. That moment your sickness becomes public knowledge. Or feels like it.
And that exposure is so painful because, as the source says, the individual feels exposed, like your sickness is written across your skin.
It specifies 3 different kinds of external judgment,
Right?
and they all combine to just corrode your sense of self.
Yeah, let's break those down. It lists contempt, disbelief, and pity.
Okay. Different reactions, but all isolating in their own way.
Let's start with contempt. That's the moral judgment, isn't it? The shaking head, the sigh, the feeling people convey that you just lack willpower, discipline.
Yeah, it just confirms the worst things you already secretly think about yourself. That deep shame, that feeling of being morally weak.
Exactly. The world sees you as deficient. Then there's disbelief.
Right. Those are the people saying, oh, come on, it can't be that bad. Just, cut back a bit. But you look fine.
And that disbelief is so isolating because it completely denies your reality, your pain, your struggle.
It minimizes the disease, makes you feel like you're exaggerating or being dramatic.
Right. And it forces you back into hiding, back into secrecy, which just feeds the whole cycle again.
But the source suggests pity. Pity is often the worst one. Why is that? We usually think of pity as being linked to compassion.
Well, think about what pity does to your internal sense of power. Contempt says you failed to control yourself. Pity. Pity suggests you're fundamentally incapable of ever controlling yourself.
Ah, okay. It removes agency completely.
Totally. Is that patronizing look, that feeling that you're no longer seen as a capable adult, just an object of sorrow. When pity walks in, dignity walks out. And the idea of having a future where you're in charge, it just feels impossible.
Wow. Yeah, looking at those 3 together, contempt, disbelief, pity, you can see why someone would feel utterly judged no matter how people react. It explains the isolation.
Definitely. And this leads us straight into how the source reframes the environment, where people often find themselves at this point like a detox center or a treatment facility.
Right, because those places carry such stigma.
And the source gives this really vital instruction here. Don't crucify yourself for ending up in that treatment center, that detox, that mental health ward.
That feels crucial, because instinctively those walls feel like the ultimate symbol of failure. I ended up here.
But the document insists you have to reframe it. Don't mistake the walls for failure. See them as a sanctuary, a place to finally stop fighting the wrong war.
Okay.
It demands you face the truth head on. The war is over, and yes, you lost. That specific war against the addiction.
That's a hard pill to swallow. Absolute defeat.
It is. But by admitting that specific loss, the internal fight, that exhausting, pointless effort to control the uncontrollable finally stops.
And all the resources that went into that fight.
Yeah.
Maintaining the illusion, the secrecy, chasing the next high.
Suddenly they're available, freed up.
So losing the war against the addiction becomes the necessary step to even begin fighting the war for your life. The environment shifts. Not a prison of defeat, but maybe the starting line for recovery.
Exactly.
Okay, so Section 2 digs into this idea. How does this total loss, this defeat, actually lead to a kind of strength that couldn't exist before? It feels so counterintuitive. We're taught strength is about winning, right? But here, the source says, in that defeat, something almost sacred happened. What's the mechanism there? How does that work?
Well, the mechanism is really clarity. A clarity born out of sheer necessity. But the strength isn't found in the initial experience of that defeat. The source is clear about that.
Oh, wait.
That initial experience is described as pure sickness and agony. It's the raw physical mental pain of separating from the addiction. You're being ripped away from what your brain perceived as. Well, listen to this framing. The only love I ever trusted, ease and comfort.
Wow, the only love I ever trusted. That hits hard. Because the addiction is reliable, isn't it, in its own destructive way?
Absolutely. It delivers immediate, predictable relief, even if that relief is killing you.
Yeah, it doesn't judge you. It's always available. You trust it because it shows up.
It's this perverse form of companionship. And the absence of that ease and comfort, that's where the early days of sobriety are just brutal. It's not just physical withdrawal, though. That's part of it. It's a deep psychological severing.
Losing the one relationship that felt completely dependable.
Yeah. And when that crutch is kicked out, you feel completely exposed, raw, unprotected from all the harshness of life you were trying to escape in the first place.
And yet, this is where the source says the first act of strength occurs. Not some big heroic gesture.
No.
It's simply the moment you picked up the phone, the moment you asked for help.
That single action, it's monumental. The source says, and this is powerful, only someone who's been gutted by this disease knows how heavy that call is.
We need to pause on that weight. Why is it so heavy?
Because it's not just asking for help. It's a public contradiction of your ego. The ego spent years, maybe decades, projecting this image of competence, of being okay, of having it handled.
So making that call means tearing down those walls of secrecy you built. It means accepting the potential pity, the contempt we talked about,
Right.
walking right into the vulnerability the addiction was designed to numb.
It's the ultimate act of courage, the source argues, because it's also the ultimate betrayal
Hmm.
of the loyal companion.
Ah, that metaphor again, it's potent.
Incredibly, the addiction is framed as the most loyal companion, the one that's been killing you slowly while convincing you it was saving you.
Let's unpack that toxic loyalty. Why does the mind perceive something so destructive as loyal?
Well, loyalty implies presence, right?
Mhm.
Reliability. The addiction was always there. In
Mhm.
crisis, celebrating, cushioning failures, it never took a day off, never asked tough questions.
It just offered escape. Simple.
Simple and deadly. That's the toxic part. The price for that constant companionship was your slow self-destruction. So separating from that perceived loyalty, it's heartbreaking on a really deep primal level. It feels like losing the only stable thing, the only safe place in a world that feels chaotic.
So the real act of strength isn't about winning a fight against an external enemy initially. It's about breaking up with this toxic friend, this companion who manipulated you into thinking it was your protector.
Exactly. It demands this huge moral and psychological separation. Recognizing that the comfort it offered was entirely conditional on you destroying yourself. That moment, that choice, is where internal power starts to flicker back on.
Choosing the pain of withdrawal over the perceived comfort of using. That's the definition of initial strength right there.
But the source is really careful here. It says, the immediate aftermath is not peace. Don't expect sunshine and rainbows.
Right. The pain of separation is a wound that doesn't close overnight. It lingers, it says, like the echo of a song.
Yeah, and that lingering prevents you from jumping ahead too quickly, thinking, okay, I asked for help, now I'm great. The work starts with enduring that raw pain.
That persistent ache.
Yeah, it's important.
It's crucial. It's
Yeah.
a sign that deep rewiring is happening. It's your ego, your body, your mind protesting the loss of their familiar destructive routine. But, and this is the key, within that ache, the document finds the first glimmer of hope.
Okay.
It calls it the first breath of something new. Not peace, not yet, but the possibility of it.
The possibility of peace. Yes. That tiny crack of light, that open possibility is the critical link. It's the space where the surrendered powerlessness starts to morph into the potential for real internal power. And that sets the stage perfectly for the relentless pursuit we see in our second source.
Okay, so we've laid the foundation. That courageous surrender, admitting powerlessness. Now we hit a major shift in tone, moving to the second source, greatness within you.
Yeah, it's a dramatic pivot.
The agony and vulnerability we just talked about, it suddenly transforms into this, well, aggressive, almost unapologetic intensity. This source is all about the proactive, relentless effort needed to achieve your destiny.
It really is night and day, isn't it?
Yeah.
We go from acknowledging our brokenness to declaring our absolute potential, and the bridge between those two states. It's about mastering the internal narrative.
Right. Source 2 makes it crystal clear. The biggest threat to your destiny, your recovery, your future, it's internal. It's not what other people say or think.
This speaks directly back to that external exposure, doesn't it? The contempt, disbelief, pity, that stuff hurts. It's real. But this document gives you the shield.
And it's captured in that powerful quote, "You will never be defeated by what they say about you. You will be defeated by what you say about you."
That right there. That's the core principle for building resilience and recovery. If the external judgment felt bad, the internal judgment, the self-hatred, the constant self-crucifixion that often fuels addiction that's lethal.
Those inner voices whispering shame, inadequacy, they're way more dangerous than any outside critic.
Far more insidious. So the first act of strength was reaching out, asking for help. The next act of strength, the ongoing one, is managing that voice inside your head. The one that keeps trying to tell you you're still worthless, still defined by the defeat, still that person.
Precisely. Recovery, seen through this lens, is about systematically, determinedly reclaiming your own story. You have to pivot from that internalized blame, I'm a failure because I'm an addict, to an internalized belief.
Something like, I am defined by the greatness I am now fighting to create.
And this belief system needs an anchor. It needs purpose. The source dedicates its entire message to the greatness in you and to the dream that you showed up on the planet to produce.
That's the rediscovered destiny. This gives direction to all that intense energy that gets freed up when someone stops using.
Right, because active addiction distorts purpose, doesn't it? Your whole purpose becomes finding the substance, hiding the use, managing the fallout. It's all consuming.
Completely. So now that huge reservoir of focus, planning, scheming, effort, it needs a new target, a constructive one.
Addiction was about filling a void. Greatness or recovery is about building something new.
Exactly. And the self-talk has to reflect that. It has to shift from validating the emptiness to fueling the construction project.
Okay, now we get to the really uncompromising part, the action plan for this construction. And it's not gentle. This isn't passive self-help. It reads like a declaration of war on mediocrity, on relapse, on giving up.
Yeah, it's intense.
You're fighting for your destiny, or in our context here, fighting for sustained recovery, for a meaningful life beyond addiction. And the requirement is absolute. You have to want this thing bad enough to go out and fight for it.
The demands laid out here are total. They require a complete commitment. And this is where you see that intense focus, once aimed at addiction, getting repurposed.
How so?
Well, if you want recovery, if you want that greatness with the same desperation you once chased the high, the source basically says success is guaranteed. It's about transferring that intensity.
And it lists the sacrifices required, starkly. To work day and night for it. To give up your time, your peace, and your sleep for it. That sounds like total immersion.
It is. It demands sacrificing all that temporary ease and comfort we talked about earlier, the very thing the addiction falsely promised.
So there's the crucial difference. Addiction offered ease, escape, but the price was your long-term self-worth, maybe your life.
Right. Whereas greatness or recovery demands sacrificing short-term comfort, like sleep, free time, relaxation for a long-term hard-won victory.
And the intense discipline needed for sobriety, especially early on, it really mirrors this checklist, doesn't it? Planning your days, managing stress, putting recovery first.
Absolutely. It requires planning every single day sometimes, managing every trigger, every stressor, putting the recovery plan ahead of almost everything else. It's that level of dedication.
Okay, but I have to push back a little here. The language is so fanatical. Work day and night, give up your peace. Isn't there a danger here? If you replace the total obsession of addiction with a total obsession for greatness, aren't you just swapping one unhealthy focus for another? How does the source address that?
That's a really important question. And I think the distinction lies in the driver and the outcome.
Okay.
Addiction is driven by escape, by avoidance, and the outcome is destruction of self, of relationships, of potential. This pursuit of greatness or recovery is driven by a defined positive purpose. The outcome is creation, self-building.
So the intensity might feel similar, but the energy is channeled productively towards life, not away from it.
Exactly. The source reinforces this when it says, if all that you dream and scheme is about it, and life seems useless and worthless without it.
That line perfectly mirrors the addictive mindset. Nothing matters but the substance.
It does. But when that same all-consuming focus is directed towards a positive purpose, like building a sober, meaningful life, it transforms into healthy determination. It ensures recovery isn't just about stopping the bad stuff, but aggressively starting something much better.
Okay, that makes sense. The commitment also demands huge emotional and physical investment. It says, if you gladly sweat for it and fret for it and plan for it.
Let's look at fretting there. In this context, it's not passive worrying like, oh no, what if? It's more like productive anxiety, strategic planning.
Right. In recovery, that's like agonizing over the details of your day, right? Anticipating triggers, having escape plans, knowing who to call.
Exactly. It's that intense, focused strategy you need just to navigate a world full of potential pitfalls when you're trying to stay sober.
And this total commitment, it requires overcoming opposition both inside you and outside. You have to lose all your terror of the opposition for it.
And this is where that reclaimed power really shows up. Remember earlier, the person was terrified of external judgment, contempt, pity, and paralyzed by those internal voices of shame. Losing the terror means, well, it means embracing vulnerability but not being controlled by it, standing firm against cravings, dismissing those external judgments because your internal voice of purpose, of recovery, is finally louder.
So that feeling of being exposed we talked about earlier, it transforms into something more like accountable presence. Here I am doing the work.
Beautifully put, yeah. Then the source lists the specific qualities needed for this fight. It's not just willpower. It's going after it with all your capacity, strength, and sagacity, faith, hope, and confidence, and stern pertinacity.
Okay, we need to dig into a couple of those.
Yeah.
Sagacity and stern pertinacity, they stand out.
They do. Let's start with sagacity. It basically means sharp, practical wisdom, good judgment, discernment.
How does that apply in recovery?
It's like intellectual sobriety. It's taking the knowledge you gained maybe from therapy, meetings, reading, and applying it in real-time situations. It's the ability to clearly see danger ahead, manage money wisely again, build healthy relationships.
Things the addiction completely undermined.
Totally. Addiction clouds judgment, favors impulse, seeks immediate relief. Sagacity is the opposite. It's reasoned, it's strategic.
So if a risky situation comes up in old using buddy calls, a major stressor hits sagacity is that quiet, wise voice inside saying, okay, I've planned for this. Here's the sober step I take next.
Precisely. It's strategic thinking for learning. Now contrast that with stern pertinacity.
Pertinacity, that sounds like stubbornness.
It is stubborn persistence, but add stern to it. It implies this grim, unyielding resolve. It's sheer grit. It's the voice that says, I don't care how bad it hurts, I will not yield.
Where does that show up day to day?
It shows up in the moment of intense craving. Sagacity gives you the plan, right?
Yeah.
Pertinacity gives you the brute force to follow that plan when every cell in your body is screaming for relief.
It's the stubbornness that stops your hand from picking up the phone to call that old loyal companion.
Exactly. It's the capacity to endure that lingering echo of a song from the addiction, to recognize the pain as part of healing and just keep going anyway. And it has to be stern because the impulse to relapse can feel absolutely overwhelming sometimes.
So these two qualities, sagacity, the strategic wisdom, and pertinacity, the gritty resolve, they are the core internal structures that addiction dismantled. And recovery is the act of deliberately rebuilding them.
Yes. And this relentless effort, this rebuilding, it has to be so complete that it overrides even existential threats. The pursuit has to withstand true tribulation. The source lists them. Either cold, poverty, famish, or galt. Sickness and pain of body and brain can keep you away.
That's a heavy list. This isn't just having a bad week. It's physical misery, being broke, serious illness. The source is saying your commitment to recovery, to your purpose, has to be stronger even than your own physical suffering sometimes.
It underscores the absolute stakes. If this new life, this destiny is truly worth fighting for, the commitment has to be absolute. Because life will throw these kinds of extreme obstacles at you eventually.
And the final push is described as, if dogged and grim, you besiege and beset it.
Dogged and grim. There's that intensity again, like a siege.
Yeah, you're not politely knocking on the door of your future. You're surrounding it, demanding entry.
That's stern pertinacity in action. It's the complete opposite of running away, which is what addiction was. Addiction laid siege to you. Now, the recover itself has to lay siege to their future. Focused, aggressive, relentless.
The power that was surrendered in that first act of strength. Now it's fully back online, fully exercised.
Confirmed. And the ultimate promise, tying all this internal strength and relentless effort to the final outcome, is this. With the help of God, you'll get it. You have greatness in you.
Whether you interpret God externally or internally, it's about that alignment. The internal power finally matches the external reality you're creating. Hashtag outro.
Wow. We've covered a huge arc today. We started in that heavy silence after the high, facing absolute powerlessness, feeling the shame, the weight of having lost the war against addiction. And we found that the very first step towards reclaiming any kind of strength wasn't some big victory march. It was actually the most painful act of surrender, just picking up that heavy phone and asking for help.
And the synthesis here, bringing these two sources together, it's profound. It shows that real power isn't found in that initial illusion of control. It's found by embracing defeat first, and then focusing all that intense consuming energy, that dogged and grim drive towards a clearly defined destiny, towards recovery.
The level of commitment needed for lifelong recovery, it has to match the sheer intensity described in that second source's pursuit of greatness.
They're the same fight, the fight for sobriety, the fight for purpose. It's one single relentless effort. The first source showed us the necessary humility, the vulnerability, the painful foundation work.
Yeah.
And the second source gave us the ambitious, uncompromising blueprint for the skyscraper you have to build on top of that foundation. This isn't just abstract talk. It feels like a survival manual.
For moving from a life defined by escape to a life driven by aggressive positive purpose.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on. We saw how the pain of separating from that toxic, loyal companion, the addiction, actually created the space for the first breath of something new, the possibility of peace.
Right.
So the question becomes, what loyal companion might you be holding on to right now in your own life? Maybe it's not a substance. Maybe it's the comfort of playing small, the safety of inaction, the predictability of a limiting belief about yourself.
What seems like it's saving you.
But is actually
slowly, quietly, killing your potential, your destiny. Identifying that comfort, that thing you're reluctant to let go of despite the cost, that's the necessary realization of powerlessness in that area. And perhaps that realization is the point where you can begin your next act of strength.